Hi, welcome to today's Piece of Peace. Starting off our days still with gratitude and thankfulness, which opens us up to receive all that God has for us. Our perspective can change as we spend time with the Creator of the universe who created us. Our perspective changes. I received a text from Rick Pino the other morning, just saying that the only resolution to a sinful, repetitive, sinful, secret sin life is to spend time in the presence of God. The Lord speaks in His Word, just sort of saying that in His presence there is no sin. So if there's something that you're struggling with, and you can't get your hand on it, or can't get a grip on it, or can't get it under control, the more time you spend in the presence of God, that is going to be your answer to overcome. Because you can't, seriously, if you have worship music playing in your home, which I suggest for everybody to do 24/7, if you have worship music playing, the enemy really can't be present to that. Can't stand that we worship our Creator. He wants to be worshipped, wants to have the power of the Creator, but doesn't. Is created by God and not even in God's image, so he doesn't even have the power that God gives to those of us that bear His image with the power of our spoken word, the power of our mind, because we're made in the image of God. But when we are spending time in God's presence, there is no room for sin, because God isn't around that. But because He's all love, He's all truth, He's all light. And that is a darkness that gets exposed in the presence of God. So as we move into coming into His presence each morning with hearts of gratitude and thankfulness, and practicing His presence, which we spoke about yesterday, just all throughout our days, it's very important. I look at today's, starting, and I'm just laying out my heart of gratitude to God. Good morning, Lord. Thank you for this new day. I said thank you for life, for music, for children, for love, for health, for peace, for joy, for laughter, for hope, for family, for your word, your grace, your mercy, your provisions, nature, your creation. Hearing the cardinals singing, visualizing God singing over me with that. And just set out a prayer for a young girl who is in a bit of a crisis with her family, and praying for them this morning. But getting a hold of my thoughts, my spoken word, my action, bringing it into the presence of God, and just worshiping with my guitar, giving God praise this morning, which is what led me into the devotion that I'm reading out of Our Daily Bread. It's a little devotional book that you can order online and have it sent to your home. The author of today's devotion is Wynne Collier, and is writing out of Mark 12:38 through 44, and the title of the devotion is Out of Our Poverty. So I'm going to start in 28, Mark 38 through 44. As he taught, Jesus said, "Watch out for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and be greeted in the marketplaces, and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses, and for a show make lengthy prayers. Such men will be punished most severely." It was very interesting to me to see this. Who's devouring the houses of the widows and saying lengthy prayers at shows, just for show. And such men will be punished most severely, it says. It goes on to speak about the widow's offering. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put, and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, worth only a fraction of a penny. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "I tell you the truth, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." Made me ponder, what makes somebody generous? What makes them not? What aids us into giving? And what makes us want to take care of ourselves or hang on to stuff because we want to protect ourselves, our own? I started to look at this more than just a monetary thing. But what if our poverty is how we view what we're capable of doing? And God says, as you spend time with me, then I have things for you that I want you to do that you might not think you can because you have this poverty of what you're capable of. But you wouldn't be moving out of your own weakness or your own 2 copper coins. You'd be working out of my abundance, my limitlessness, my grandeur, my power, my strength. I started to think about what he had walked me through this last season of my life and calling me to do something very difficult, yet I couldn't move in my own power of it. I wanted to put up walls and walk away and and move somewhere else where it wasn't as painful. But when he calls me to a difficult thing, I have to move in his power and not my own. I have to realize above my poverty mentality or my thoughts of what I'm capable of doing, that he's capable of doing much greater things through me, even in difficult situations, if I'm humble enough to allow him to work through me. I want to read the devotion that came up with Win Collier, and out of our poverty. There was a psychologist named Paul Piff. Was curious on studying patterns of generosity. Through a research test, he discovered that the poor were inclined to give 44% more of what they had than wealthy people. Those who felt their own poverty are often moved to greater generosity. I find that to be true too. As I've watched the people on the corners and I see I just see what I'm watching, and I watch very expensive cars just drive by the people that are holding signs like homeless and really anything can help. And then I watch cars that are really just falling apart, and they're the ones rolling down the window handing the money to the gentleman or the lady standing on the corner. I watch homeless people give out of, there's been these people who have gone on the street corners in New York with cameras to watch how those who are asking for anything that are homeless and looking for some help, there's just a lot of people that walk by them, but the most run down, barely have anything person's handing out what they do have to share with them. It's very interesting to me. Out of And true that this psychologist, Paul, discovered that the poor were inclined to give 44% more of what they had than wealthy people. Those who felt their own poverty are often moved to greater generosity. Jesus knew this. Visiting the temple, he watched the crowds drop gifts into the treasury, and the rich tossed in much cash. But the poor widow pulled out her last 2 copper coins, worth maybe a penny, and placed them in the basket. I picture Jesus standing up. He writes, delighted and astounded. Immediately he gathered his disciples, making sure they didn't miss this dazzling act. The poor widow had put more into the treasury than all the others. Jesus exclaimed. The disciples looked at each other, bewildered, hoping someone would or could explain what Jesus was talking about. So he made it plain. Those bringing huge gifts gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything. We may have little to give, he goes on, but Jesus invites us to give out of our poverty. Though it may seem meager to others, we give what we have, and God finds great joy in our lavish gifts. The charge was, what does it mean for you to give out of your poverty? Even more so than monetary, which I love to do. And it's like, Lord, how do I give out of my poverty of my spirit, or out of my poverty of what I think I can handle or have the strength to handle? It's like, you rest in me, and you just keep giving. You keep giving. How can you give everything for Jesus today? So this is where I grab a hold of. I need your mindset, and I need to know what you want of me, and your perspective, your reality, that my spoken word and my actions will be put to exactly what you want of me. Because he does call us to do things that are beyond what we think we can handle. And yet he's very capable of giving us what we need to accomplish that, because his strength is much stronger. His ways are much higher. He understands in full. We understand in part. How can you give everything for Jesus today? A living sacrifice. All of who I am and all that I have belongs to you. Prayer is this: God, I don't feel like I have much to offer. My gifts feel puny and worthless. But I'm here, all of me. Will you receive me in my poverty? That led me to Jesus Calling, which is Sarah Young's book, and she writes from the perspective of God speaking to us. Today is very poignant to what's being talked about. Walk by faith, not by sight. As you take steps of faith depending on me, I will show you how much I can do for you. If you live your life too safely, you'll never know the thrill of seeing me work through you. When I gave you my spirit, I empowered you to live beyond your natural ability and strength. That's why it's so wrong to measure your energy level against the challenges ahead of you. The issue is not your strength, but mine, which is limitless, he says. By walking close to me, you can accomplish my purposes in my strength. So as we move to not have a poverty mentality, but to give freely, because God gives to us monetarily, in our time, in our service, in our mindset, in our spoken word, in our action. Let's give generously and see what he does through it, because it'll be in his power and not our own. It'll be through his abundance and not our lack of. But that's today's piece of peace. God bless you.